Hello Orchid friends, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time watching my video, my channel is all about orchids. From what orchids I have, how I grow them, my thoughts on certain orchid topics, to what orchids in my collection are blooming, etc. So if you want to follow along my orchid hobby adventure, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on the notification. Today in this video, we're looking at my Phalaenopsis flying eagle Wilson. This is a cross between Tetraspis C1 and Dragon Tree Eagle. So this orchid has been talked about in my channel for a couple times this year, and the latest video I was telling you guys that one spike, it gave me a total of 6 blooms, but I was wrong because it continued to bloom further. So back in April 2019, that was this orchid's first blooming for the year. And then the second time was in June. It gave me 3 flowers, and then followed by 1 flower in August. But then, as soon as that last flower in August was fading, I noticed that at the end of the flower spike tip was having something. So it continued to grow longer. The spike continued to elongate. So I was really super surprised that it actually was not about to go into like a dormant state. I remember when I made that video for the August bloom, I basically archived all the photos and video footage of this particular orchid, thinking that this orchid is probably gonna take a break and probably will start blooming again. Next time I see this orchid or talk about this orchid on this channel would be sometime in 2020. But I was wrong. This orchid continued to work really hard and eventually pushed out another 3 buds. So around mid-October was when the buds really started to grow much bigger, and then end of October was the time that this orchid really started to opening its buds. This orchid, for those of you who are new to the hobby, this orchid has this characteristic called sequential blooming, and that is why this orchid bloom 4 different times within this year on the same spike. And that also is the reason why I always tell new hobbyists that try not to cut the flower spikes if they are still green. Personally, I will only cut off a flower spike when it's yellowing or is already completely dry. Especially if you buy a new orchid. If you come across a new orchid, you take it home, you don't know if this orchid is a sequential bloomer, it's always safer to leave the spike be. Another added benefit is some orchids, even though they're not sequential bloomers, they may be prone to producing keikis, which are orchid babies. And sometimes they do produce orchid babies or keikis from the nodes on existing flower spikes. So sometimes you don't get extra blooms out of a spike, but you do get extra mini plants that you can potentially grow. And that's another topic, right? I have my own opinion about how not to remove or how to remove keikis from flower spikes, and my opinion about whether keikis are easy or difficult to take care of, and that's just, those are topics for another time. But if you're new to this hobby, what I'm trying to say is try not to cut the spikes just because the flowers are finished. And now let's talk a little bit about this orchid's main characteristics. This orchid inherited the characteristics of Tetraspis C1, so some of the petals or sepals will have random color distribution, and for this orchid, its color combination is red and yellow. Tetraspis C1, it has many different strengths, but the most common one is red and white, which I have too. Sometimes they have random color combination of red and white, and so this one is red and yellow. And for my particular one here, the color variants always happen on the 2 petals, which are the top right and the top left petals, and the other 3 are called sepals. So this one always have yellow, some kind of yellow color on the petals. But I have seen other flying eagle whalesome having random red and yellow combination on their sepals. But this one, the sepals are always in pretty dark red. Another thing about this orchid is its lovely fragrance. It has that powdery fragrance. Sometimes it reminds me of a bar soap, but sometimes it reminds me of some kind of air freshener. It just depends, but it's a very pleasant smell. It's definitely not citrusy, but it's something, I think it's a smell that everyone would like. Another interesting aspect about this orchid is that its flowers are really substantial. It's pretty thick and waxy at the same time. And it also has that fussy lips, and I think that's a characteristics from Tetraspis C1. Tetraspis also has very, very cute fussy lips, and this one also has that characteristic, so I really like it a lot. Sometimes I even take very, very close-up photos of the fussy lips. I grow this orchid in a semi-hydro setup, and that is a method that I tried on a few orchids, and sometimes they have adjustment periods, but some of them, get used to this method immediately. And this orchid is one of the ones that really likes this method and did not have any adjustment period. So in a way, I think I got lucky with this one and with semi-hydro method, because immediately it started to grow and the roots started to grow and grew so long that it reached the bottom of the reservoir. And to me, for semi-hydro method, that is the best case scenario, because it allows me not to have to always fill up the reservoir and be able to only give a certain amount of water. So that gives me a lot of flexibility, especially when the weather is either really hot or really cold, high or really low humidity. I get to decide how much water I give to this orchid. But it's always somewhere around, it's in between 1/8 of a cup to 1/4 cup. It just depends. But the water amount is either 1/4 cup or somewhere in between. In terms of fertilizers, I only use quarter strength fertilizer, 25% of the recommended dosage for this orchid, and it seems to be doing pretty well. So I think I'm gonna continue with 25% fertilizer for this orchid in the coming year. Semi-hydro is a very interesting method. Not every orchid likes it, but Phalaenopsis orchid this category of orchids seems to have a very good adoption rate for this method. At least for my Phalaenopsis orchids, they are doing pretty well in semi-hydro in my environment. And if you are interested in learning more about this growing method, I have done quite a few videos in my channel about semi-hydro. So, if you want, go take a look and watch some video. Maybe that's a method that you can try out for yourself. And finally, this orchid, for those of you who wonder how much I paid for it, I think I only paid $35 for it, or maybe $40. I don't remember this orchid being that expensive. So if you're interested, go online, find some reputable nurseries. Chances are good that you're gonna find a mature plant that you can try it out for yourself. I think it's a really rewarding orchid, and it's not hard to take care of. It's not fussy, so I think you should definitely give it a try. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!